Sarah with the 5D Codes podcast, coming to you from the car. What better place to record a podcast than when you're waiting for your kid to finish a Korean lesson? It's always a good time to record a podcast because you know what? Life is a podcast. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We are living in a simulation, and we live in this simulation until we see that it is what it is. And then something shifts. And you and me, we're in this space together. We're in the big shift right now. We're in the big shift. We are seeing that all of the programs that have embedded themselves in us from our ancestors that are coded in our DNA, from society, from our lived environments, are just that. They are programs. We get to pick and choose what resonates. Or do we? I want to keep exploring this question, letting God take the lead. That was one of my first podcasts this season. We're in season 3 now. And we're talking God. We're talking creator. We're talking source energy. I mean, we are splashes of paint on God's canvas. And the whole point of this game is to realize that we are a splash of paint on God's canvas, that nothing is real but the life force energy coursing through us. It's trippy to understand with the mind because the soul is just energy. It is literally just energy. So I want to tap into near-death experiences and childbirth experiences when we have that DMT release, because that is the closest thing to understanding God consciousness. Why do people have to get pushed to that edge to literally die, whether it's for a few seconds or a few minutes, or give birth, which in my case, you know, having given birth to a child who was a very large baby, she was almost 12 pounds and I'm 5'8" and 125 pounds. So my body taught me that your body grows a baby it can get out. You know, I had her all naturally at home. I don't want to go into the birth story because we'll leave that for another podcast. This isn't the type of the themed podcast for that story. But if you're curious and want to know, I blogged about it back in the day, and it's somewhere online under spiritual pregnancy, I think, at Blog Press. But that moment when I was giving birth, I think it's akin to death because I felt like I was going to die. Like I felt like I was pushed, my physical body was pushed to an edge. And it was miraculous that this very large baby was able to come out of me all naturally. And I was with my father when he passed, essentially as a death doula, alongside my sister and my aunt. And I, in both of those moments, felt God. When I had my daughter, it was the most profound moment. And I know we're jumping deep real quick here, but that's what life is. It is, every moment is so freaking deep. I mean, you could be sitting on the bus, twiddling your thumbs, looking out the window, and feel the depth and peace of life. And I've been there too. Thanks to an Eckhart Tolle moment that I had in Vancouver, British Columbia. But let's get back to that childbirth, because this was such a profound moment. And I feel like, yeah, even my throat can't express this. Even my writing way back when I blogged it didn't do it justice, because you really can't put God into words. But the moment that my body was pushed to the edge after a very long labor, after hours of, let's say, trying to push her out, because that's literally what happened, I thought my body was going to die. And what kept me going was willpower, sheer will. My mind telling me you can do it. Was that really my mind, or was that God talking to me, and through me? So the moment that I had my daughter, and it was not a pain-free moment, I remember literally as she was being pushed out feeling like I understand what this life is about now. I understand what this life is about. It just came to me, this automatic thought, wow, this is such a miracle. Like, in that moment, I felt intense pain and also intense bliss, because this child that it was, gestating inside of me for 9+ months, because she was late, hence why she was so big, showed herself to me. And we didn't know the gender either. So it was like, it was all a surprise. And on top of that, she was massive. And I thought, how did that big child grow inside me? I can't even express it in words. Talk about another miracle, right? And then when I was with my dad, it piggybacked that experience. I feel like I can't measure one is more miraculous than the other. I mean, the birth of my child, honestly, next to the passing of my dad, which was another peaceful, beautiful moment filled with pain, right? The pain of loss. I actually sat with his body for an hour, his shell of a body for an hour after his soul left his body. And I've never seen energy. Some people see energy. I'm clairsentient and clairaudient. I feel it and I hear it more. But in that moment, I literally saw the wisp of his soul leave his body, and his body looked shrunken all of a sudden, and it looked vacant. That when that life force energy is gone from the body, it's like that person isn't there anymore, and you can tell. My dad had a beautiful face, and they had just in hospice they had shaved him and cleaned him up, and he looked so handsome and so peaceful. And I just needed to be with my dad. I was still grieving the loss of his shell, because I know I can communicate with him now. And this is, I think, the gift that, being in situations like that gives you, or losing someone. You don't have to be with them. This happened with my sister as well in 2000. I wasn't with her when she passed, but I felt her, and she came to me in a dream. She came to me in other ways, even as an apparition. I actually did see her spirit once, and it all just happened spontaneously. Like when I tried to manipulate experiences, like tried to talk to my sister or talk to my dad, and kind of force it never flowed. But when I've just let go, and I've been on a nature walk, let's say, and a deer or a bird will come up to me, and it just has this unique energy. I'm like, whoa, I feel like, this is my dad or my sister talking to me. I know for myself, I don't question those moments anymore. I don't question those moments. And, you can tell in this podcast, I don't give advice. And this is how I will be writing my book too. I'm sharing my lived experience, because my lived experience is all I know. It is. Your lived experience is all you know. I don't tout book wisdom either unless I have lived it, unless I embody it. Like when Eckhart Tolle talked about the mind shutting off and power of now, I didn't really understand that until I lived it when I was in my yoga training and my brain shut off for a couple hours, and I was able to ride a bus in Vancouver and feel the peace of God and not actually have a care in the world, not even have a desire in the world, until my stomach started growling. And then my body told me to go get food. So I did. I went out, I got off the bus, and I went to Whole Foods. And I felt like the embodiment of what Eckhart Tolle was talking about. Now, it didn't stay with me. I actually went and grabbed lunch, and this is kind of a cool story too. And I went and sat on the, they have, Whole Foods has a bunch of open seating. They have this bar by the window, and I love looking out the window, looking at nature, at the sky, people watching. So I decided to sit at this bar, and then this man sat next to me, and he's probably like my age now. I was in my 20s. He was in his 40s. And I was eating, and then he started up a conversation, introduced himself and whatnot. And as we started talking, I could tell he was very spiritual. And he handed me his name card. And I know those are really big in Europe too. I looked at it, and it's, it had his name, and then it said PHB, like P.H.B, like PhD. And I thought, PHB, what does this mean? And he smiled, he gave me a little smirk, and I knew he was like waiting for that, right? It was a little shtick I can tell he, is used to on the daily basis. He said, oh, PHB, that's professional human being. So, and he basically said, I know I'm a soul having a human experience. this is not who I truly am in this avatar, but I am adopting this role. And I thought that was really, really cool. And it was another awakening on top of an awakening. Now my brain, as I'm chatting with him, started to kick in gear again. And I realized how many thoughts I have throughout the day, whether loop or repeat thoughts, or, just my brain constantly being active with something. So as he, shared his professional human being initial, the acronym meaning, my brain started kicking in with my own process around being a soul having a human experience, because that was very much a question that I was exploring at that phase of my life. And honestly, I'm still exploring it, and I think I will be as long as I'm in this human skin suit. We always get what we need when we need it. It doesn't always feel smooth. It doesn't always feel graceful to the ego or to the human avatar, but to God it is. It's grace. It's like, you're a splash of paint on the canvas of God. And somebody recently commented on one of my videos on my YouTube, because I post this podcast on YouTube as well. And they said, it was the last podcast I did. And they said, and I'm trying to remember the title and I can't, so I'm just going to keep going. This isn't what I expected. This is, somebody sharing a story about their life. That's not what I expected. And I originally, when I was sharing the title of the podcast, thought, I don't know if I should tweak my description for this, because I am, especially in this season, sharing through story. And you realize that this is the oldest way of passing on history, right? Before writing, there was storytelling. I personally have gained so much. There's been so much awakening activation listening to other people's stories, or just like the man in Vancouver, the PhD dude, hearing somebody else's way of processing their lived experience, how they understand awakening, has helped me. Because I know, the man who deemed himself a professional human being has a very different mind, heart, and energy than me. There's a reason that we connected. Out of all the billions of people on the planet, why was he the person that sat next to me after I'd had that awakening experience in Vancouver and got to experience the blessing of no thoughts, just being? And then I meet professional human being, right? It's seamlessly magic when we see it through God's eyes. And that's why I'm sharing this podcast. That's why I share my lived experience, because I feel like anybody who's drawn to listen to this is getting codes, is getting activation from my unique energy signature. And your unique energy signature is going to take this and process it, right? And filter it through your own unique blueprint. And you will share this in whatever way you're meant to share it with the collective. And so it continues to go. It's the domino effect, right? One of my professors in my grad school program, who was a therapy supervisor of mine as well, was really into narrative therapy, which is all about storytelling and telling the story of your life and learning how to reframe telling the story of your life. And I remember him saying one day, we're all standing on the shoulders of others. And, when you're in college or university, professors are always saying, use your original thoughts. Don't plagiarize. Well, in truth, is there an original thought? Is there an original thought left on this planet? Because when we are processing information, like when the mind is, I'm not even talking about the heart, it is disseminating information based on what it has heard from others in the past. Like all of that information that's come at it from, whether it's from books, from lived experience, conversations that you've had, cultures that you visited, there's a milieu of ways to get information. Listening to podcasts, the news. Gosh, I hope you don't listen to the news. Watching movies, whatever. I mean, humans are constantly telling stories without being aware that they're telling stories. So it's really, really powerful when you realize that, and you even become aware that you are having a human experience, and you can decide to embody that and say, maybe I'll even title this episode Professional Human Being. I am a professional human being. That is my job on this planet. It is not clocking in 9 to 5 at a cubicle, or being a CEO of a company, or running a small business, or being a parent. It is being human, and that encompasses all of your experience, because part of this life is about relating to others, and we are standing on each other's shoulders. I mean, you started out being in your mother's womb, not standing on her shoulders, being inside her, but then you gravitated to perhaps standing on shoulders. Maybe a lot of kids do that with dad. That always freaks me out, or sitting on shoulders. You understand the metaphor. I actually wore my daughter too a lot. I did attachment parenting when she was little, so I had a carrier and I had her on it as much as I could stand. And she was a big baby, so my back got strong too. But I would cook with her on me, and then she ended up, sleeping with me. We did co-sleeping, and I just felt like, it stems a lot from like tribal cultures, when nomadic cultures too, women walking have to wear their babies as they walk everywhere, even when they're gathering food. And, at some point baby separates from mom and realizes they have a personal identity, but the impact that mom has had stays with them, right? That it leaves an imprint. And if you think about these interactions that we're having, whether it's just simply listening to this podcast, talking to somebody in the grocery store that you might never see again, they're leaving their imprint on you, Somehow you are standing on each other's shoulders. Somehow you are affecting each other just by being in the same space. And it doesn't even have to be, we can even go deeper than that. It doesn't even have to be speaking to somebody or interacting. There are people in the grocery store, use that example, there could be hundreds of people shopping in a grocery store in one moment. You're not going to interact with or walk by or make eye contact with every single one of those people. But on an energetic level, they're leaving an imprint in that space, and that's affecting you. And this is why many of us are really hesitant about being in crowds. I know for myself, I have to have a very strong intention when I'm in a crowd. But when my mind is quieter, like when I had that experience in Vancouver, when my mind shut off, I left my yoga program, I rode the bus, and I rode by this area where they have a lot of people. They have certain areas and it's like this in Portland and some parts of Oregon too, and Washington. Vancouver is one of the warmer parts of that part of Canada, right? So there's a lot of homeless people that gather there, and there's areas where, at least this is we're talking 20 years ago, there are a lot of drug users, and you can even see people like shooting up and hanging out together from the bus. I drove by this one area, and I remember I used to have like this sense of judgment. And on this day when I had no thoughts, I just felt neutral. I didn't feel judgment in a positive or negative way. I just felt neutral, and it felt like this, like compassion, like this, like open-hearted, unconditional compassion that was just radiating out of me. And I don't know why that interaction in Whole Foods brought my mind back. Because I think for some people, like with Eckhart Tolle, it just happened one day. It was like there was nothing he did to manipulate it, and it just stuck with him. And then I've definitely talked to other people that have had similar experiences that I have, maybe not in the same vein, but along those same lines. And, it's come and gone. For some, it lasts for long periods. For some, it's just an in and out, really quick experience. But it leaves a very strong imprint. kind of like being with my dad when he passed, or giving birth to my daughter. That was like I remember it was like a split-second moment, both of those times. But it left this like lasting imprint in my psyche. Lasting imprint, it felt like in my DNA. And my mind will go back to that. So I think I mentioned in the last podcast, one of my favorite quotes is from Pema Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart. And I didn't intend to keep this in my mind, right? But maybe you've read things or heard things that have just stuck with you. And this is just one of them. And it's nothing to hold on to is the key to happiness. So nothing to hold on to is the key to happiness, even spiritual experiences. I was very attached to that experience of having my mind shut off because it was so peaceful. I wanted to get it back. I tried and tried. I did that same chant over and over again. It was the Satanama chant. And it just didn't work. And finally I surrendered. And I've experienced this with physical pain as well. The more I tried to work something out of my body, the more it stuck around until I surrendered. And then it just started to soften and loosen on its own. And I think that that's one of the hardest things about being human, is that this mind has a memory, right? It records everything in the subconscious. And it's clever. It's tricky. It tries to manipulate. Thinks, okay, I can manipulate this experience, but it's trying to play God. The whole point and purpose of this game is to realize we are not God and never will be God. We are just a splash of paint on the canvas of God, but we are God in the sense that we are of the substance. We are made of God, right? God just decided to pull every ounce of itself apart and say, okay, what would it be like if I created this Earth simulation? What would that be like? Let's try it. Let's make everybody unconscious so that they're not aware that I'm here and I'm doing this. And let's see how they play. And then as we start to wake up to this fact, as you and I are, we realize that we're being played, but we can also play along. And I think that's the fun that we're having. It's like, wait a minute, this is a play. I can say I'm Sarah and I'm a professional human being on this planet right now. Or come up with the acronym of your choice. And I'm curious to hear, if you're on YouTube, comment. Because, YouTube gets the least hits according to my RSS, but I think a lot of people like the shorts that I'm putting up. And just remember, there's a podcast there, and I love to have these interactions. So, you can jump on there and comment, and love to hear your acronym or any other topics that you're interested in having me talk about. Or do you want to have a conversation with me? Because I'm open to that too. I have not had conversations since the first season, and I didn't even publish all my conversations that I had with people that were on the same awakening path, exploring it from their own perspective, right? From their own unique soul signature, because there is no wrong way to wake up. When you're aware that you are a soul having a human experience, you have woken up to becoming more conscious. Are you as fully awake and fully conscious as you could be yet? That's between you and God. Nobody else can tell you how awake you are. So I'm going to end with that and pick up my daughter here from her Korean lesson, getting on with my professional human being duties. But I want to also touch in on that too, because one of the episodes this season, I talk about your purpose, your dharma, your destiny. And this one guy that I loved on YouTube that I was watching for a week straight. And then I just kind of got overloaded. I was like, whoa, okay, got to pull back on that and just, be in my own consciousness, as in just hang out with God and see what God wants to throw at me in real life. But this guy said something that really resonated, and now I've lost it. And he talks off the cuff too, and I resonate with that, because I'm like, dude, you and I should sit down and have a chat, because my mind jumps from here to there, but it always comes back to the same point. Aha, and here we go, the destiny piece. He said, when you realize your destiny, that's when you feel the sense of happiness and contentment in your human form. because that's what we're here to realize. And as I kept putting that out there, because the matrix embeds in us that we have to find a purpose. It's got to be about, following society's rules and finding this job and yada, yada. Your job is to be as fully you, your soul signature as you can be. It has nothing to do with money and house and, a minivan and a white picket fence, nothing. So maybe it is expanding it out beyond what am I doing here? You're a professional human being. You realize you've signed up to be human, and you're going to be you as fully as you can be while you walk this earth. So here I am, Sarah, a professional human being. Part of my destiny is motherhood. It's a big part of my destiny. Another piece is chronicling and communicating this awakening process. And the rest continues to unfold. I'm a friend. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter, Okay, we have all of these labels, but when you pull that away, the mind can't handle the nothingness, right? So the mind needs to insert fillers here. And we'll jump into that more if you're interested in the future, or if it just pops up in my consciousness, because I just go with the flow. And that's what being a professional human being is. We're not doing people, we're being. Being human is the hardest thing for the freaking mind. God's playing you. Are you going to fight it, or are you going to play along? I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying the play, and I have to keep reminding myself to play and not fight. On that note, this is Sarah with the 5D codes. Until next time, sending lots of love.